She sat on the Alpha King's lap. Gasps exploded. Wolf stumbled back. No one had touched him in 2 centuries, especially not during the ceremony where her mate bond was being sealed. Her chosen mate's face twisted with rage. The same rage he wore while murdering her father. By ancient right, I claim Stormblood Sanctuary. The hall erupted. Then the king raised one hand. His voice was soft. Terrifying. Let her speak. Every wolf froze. Before we continue with what happens next, if you love stories about courage, forbidden power, and justice against those who think they're untouchable, hit that subscribe button for Shadow Moon stories. Trust me, you won't want to miss what Seraphina does next. The great hall fell into a choking silence the moment Seraphina Lunaris crossed the polished stone floor and sat on the Alpha King's lap. Gasps snapped through the air like cracking whips. Wolves staggered back, some grabbing the arms of those beside them. None had ever touched Nikolai Stormrain without explicit summons, much less during the moonbinding ceremony, the event where a wolf's destined mate is confirmed and sealed for life. The moonbinding ceremony had filled the grand hall with firelight and ancient chanting. Wolves in ceremonial garb lined the stone walls, their faces painted with ritual markings. Elders sat in carved thrones, their expressions solemn beneath heavy robes. Tall banners bearing wolf sigils hung from vaulted ceilings, casting shadows that danced across the polished floor. At the center of it all sat Nikolai Stormrain. The Alpha King's throne was massive, carved from obsidian and ancient oak, black as midnight and just as unforgiving. His silver hair fell past broad shoulders, framing a face that could have been carved from stone. His bare, muscled chest was armorless, displaying the intricate black tattoos that marked him as Stormblood, ancient, immortal, feared. His spiked crown glinted in the firelight, but it was his eyes that held the room captive. Molten gold. Ancient beyond measure. Missing nothing. A ring of elite warriors surrounded the throne, hands resting on weapons they'd never needed to draw in his presence. Across the dais stood Garrett Ashford. Dark-haired, heavily built, wearing war leathers and a ceremonial sash that marked him as a pack leader. His expression was smug, proud, victoriously confident. He'd waited for this moment, the moment the moon goddess would confirm what everyone already knew, Seraphina Lunaris was his. But Seraphina had other plans. The room hushed as she began walking. Her ceremonial gown, deep silver silk that caught the firelight, whispered against stone with each step. She felt every pair of eyes boring into her back. Felt the weight of centuries-old tradition pressing down on her shoulders. She bypassed Garrett entirely. Walked past the elders who'd prepared the binding ritual. Past the sacred flames meant to seal her fate. Past the stunned guards who didn't dare move without the king's command. She climbed the dais steps. 1, 2, 3. Straight toward the throne where death itself sat watching. Garrett's smug expression flickered. Confusion. Then alarm. Before anyone could stop her, before the guards could react, before the elders could shout their protests, before Garrett could lunge forward, Seraphina sat on the Alpha King's lap. The hall erupted. Gasps exploded through the chamber like thunder. Wolves recoiled, stumbling over each other. An elder knocked over his ceremonial staff. Warriors reached for weapons before remembering where they were. Somewhere in the back, a young wolf fainted, crashing into the stone with a sickening thud. But Seraphina barely heard it. She felt Nikolai's body beneath her, solid, warm, radiating heat that felt inhuman. His bare chest pressed against her back, muscles coiled with controlled power. His arm came around her waist slowly, deliberately, like a predator deciding whether to release prey or crush it. His voice rumbled through her bones. Bold. Seraphina's hands trembled against his steeled forearm, but she kept her chin lifted. Kept her spine straight. Across the dais, Garrett's expression shattered. Shock twisted into rage. His nostrils flared. His jaw clenched so hard she heard teeth grinding. His wolf surged beneath his skin, claws extending, eyes flashing amber. But it was his smile that made bile rise in Seraphina's throat. That same smug, victorious smile he'd worn the night he murdered her father. She could still hear it. The crack of her father's neck snapping. The wet sound of claws tearing through flesh. The casual way Garrett had wiped blood from his hands like he'd just finished a meal instead of silencing the only witness to his pack's illegal experiments on rogue wolves. 3 nights ago, her moon mark had ignited during the pre-ceremony ritual, glowing hot against her neck, pointing unmistakably toward Garrett Ashford. The pack had cheered. Elders had congratulated her family. Garrett had smiled that same horrible smile. And Serafina had realized the truth. Once the mate bond sealed, he'd have access to her mind. Her memories. Her secrets. He'd know she'd seen everything that night in the woods. Know she'd gathered evidence hidden beneath the floorboards of her father's study. He'd kill her. Just like he'd killed her father. So she'd spent 3 sleepless nights tearing through every ancient text in her family's library, begging pack historians for access to forbidden archives, searching desperately for a way out. And she'd found one. Stormblood Sanctuary. A law older than the mate bond itself. A law no one had invoked in over a century. Serafina's voice came out shaking but clear. By ancient right, I claim Stormblood Sanctuary. The hall exploded. Elders shot to their feet, robes billowing, voices rising in furious protest. Council members shouted over each other. Guards shifted uneasily, unsure whether to intervene. Garrett stormed forward, his voice a snarl. She is mine. Moonchosen. Fate sealed. This is madness. But Nikolai raised one hand. Slow. Deliberate. Deadly. And the entire hall went silent. His voice was quiet. Soft. Terrifying. Let her speak. Every wolf in the room froze. Because when the Alpha King spoke softly, wolves trembled. Garrett's mouth opened. Closed. His wolf raged beneath his skin, but he didn't move. Couldn't move. Not with those molten gold eyes locked on him like a predator measuring prey. Nikolai's fingers tightened slightly against Serafina's waist. His breath was warm against her ear. You know what you're asking? His voice was intimate, meant only for her. Protection from me means belonging to me. Completely. I know, Serafina whispered. Then tell me why. She took a shaking breath. Because my chosen mate murdered my father to hide his crimes. Because the mate bond will give him access to my memories, and he'll kill me the moment he learns what I know. Because I would rather serve you in chains than stand beside him in freedom. Silence stretched like pulled wire. Then Nikolai shifted beneath her, his presence suddenly overwhelming. He took her wrist, turning it palm up. Drew a single claw across her skin. Blood welled, bright red against pale flesh. He did the same to his own wrist, then pressed them together. The contact sent a shockwave through Serafina's entire body. Not painful. Electric. Like touching lightning. A bond snapped into place, cooler than the mate bond was supposed to be, steadier, like a rope thrown to someone drowning. By blood and will, Nikolai said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, I accept your oath. You are under my protection. Let any who would harm you face me first. The bond settled with an almost audible click. Serafina gasped as power flooded through her veins, ancient, overwhelming, terrifying. Nikolai leaned down, his lips brushing her ear, his voice a whisper that somehow carried through the frozen hall. You belong to me now. And the entire pack froze in fear. If you can't stand wolves like Garrett who murder innocent people and cover it up with power and lies, hit subscribe to Shadow Moon Stories and comment what time you're watching this. Let's show that justice always catches up, because people like Garrett think they're untouchable until someone brave enough stands up. Only cowards and bullies stay silent. The bond hummed beneath Serafina's skin as guards escorted her through torchlit corridors toward the private wing of the palace. Servants pressed themselves against stone walls as she passed, eyes wide, whispers following like shadows. A maid dropped a tray, porcelain shattering across marble. 2 guards exchanged glances that spoke volumes. No one had touched the Alpha King in a century. No one had sat on his lap and lived to walk away. Yet here she was, blood-bonded, protected, belonging to the most feared wolf in the realm. Serafina's quarters were lavish beyond anything she'd known. Velvet curtains. A bed that could fit 5 wolves. Windows overlooking the northern mountains where storms gathered like wounded beasts. But she barely noticed. All she could feel was the bond thrumming through her veins, connecting her to him. Ancient. Steady. Waiting. She'd barely removed her ceremonial gown when a guard appeared at her door. "The king summons you." Now. The war room was all dark wood and stone, lit by a fireplace that crackled with flames the color of blood. Maps covered every surface, territories marked, borders drawn, battle strategies frozen mid-planning. Weapons lined the walls. Wolf skulls decorated the mantel. Nikolai stood at the center, still shirtless, still wearing that spiked crown. His silver hair caught the firelight as he studied a map, claws tracing territorial lines. 20 wolves filled the room, advisors, generals, council members. All fell silent when Serafina entered. The king didn't look up. He simply raised one hand. The room emptied in seconds. Doors closed with finality that made Serafina's pulse spike. Then they were alone. Nikolai turned, those molten gold eyes locking onto her with an intensity that stole breath. He moved with predatory grace, closing the distance between them until she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "I know Garrett killed your father." Serafina's world tilted. Her mouth opened. Closed. No sound came out. She'd told no one. Not her mother. Not her closest friend. She'd buried the memory so deep even she tried to forget some nights. "How?" "I have spies in every territory," Nikolai said, his voice low, intimate, terrifying in its casualness. "Wolves who report directly to me. I knew about the experiments 3 days after they started. I knew your father discovered them. And I knew the moment Garrett silenced him." Rage and grief crashed through Serafina in waves. "Then why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you?" "Because I was waiting to see what you would do." The words hung in the air like smoke. Nikolai circled her slowly, studying her the way wolves studied prey. "I've ruled for 200 years, Serafina. I don't intervene in pack politics unless it threatens the realm. But you," he stopped in front of her, tilting her chin up with one clawed finger. "You invoked a law older than the mate bond itself. You gambled everything on a chance I might accept. That takes either desperation or power." "It was desperation," Serafina whispered. "No." His eyes gleamed. "It was both." He released her, moving to the fireplace. Flames reflected in his eyes as he spoke. "Tell me, Serafina, what do you know about your bloodline?" "I'm Moonborn. My family has served the pack for generations." "Your family has lied to you for generations." Her heart stopped. Nikolai turned, and something in his expression shifted. "Ancient. Hungry. Desperate. You're not just Moonborn. You're Starforged. A bloodline thought extinct for 3 centuries. Your ancestors didn't just serve the moon, they commanded the stars themselves." Serafina shook her head. "That's impossible. I don't have any power." Nikolai's smile was sharp. "You do. It's dormant. Buried beneath layers of suppression your family wrapped around you to keep you safe. But I felt at the moment our blood touched. Silver-white energy, ancient as creation itself." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something raw. "And that power is the only thing in this realm capable of breaking my curse." Silence crashed through the room. "What curse?" Serafina managed. "Immortality without rest. 200 years without sleep. Without dreams. Without peace. I cannot die, Serafina. I've tried. But I also cannot live. Not truly. The curse binds me to consciousness, to awareness, to endless, sleepless torment." For the first time, Serafina saw something in his eyes beyond power and control. Exhaustion. Soul deep and ancient. "Your Starforged bloodline can shatter mortal bonds," Nikolai continued. "It can break curses that gods themselves wove. And I need you to break mine." Understanding crashed through her. "You didn't accept my oath out of mercy." "No. You accepted it because you need me. Yes. The honesty was brutal. Refreshing. Terrifying. So what happens now? Seraphina asked. Now, you learn to awaken your power. And I keep you alive long enough to use it. By morning, the palace buzzed with rumors. Elders drafted petitions demanding Nikolai reject the sanctuary oath. Council members whispered about ancient laws being violated. Wolves questioned whether their king had grown weak, accepting a runaway made into his protection. And Garrett? Garrett demanded an audience. Sent 3 formal requests. Each one denied. Seraphina felt his rage through the palace walls, a distant roar building into a storm. Nikolai watched her constantly. During meals, his eyes tracked her movements. During strategy meetings, his attention split between maps and her. The bond between them hummed louder each day, building into something she couldn't name. She tried to maintain distance. Tried to remember this was transactional, protection in exchange for power. But the king's presence was magnetic. Ancient. Strangely protective in ways that went beyond their oath. On the 3rd night, screams erupted from the courtyard. Seraphina ran to the window. Torches blazed below. And there, at the palace gates, stood Garrett Ashford with 50 wolves behind him. His voice carried through the night like thunder. Return what's mine. Above, on the highest balcony, a figure appeared. Nikolai Stormrain stood silent as death, silver hair whipping in the wind, crown glinting like stars. He didn't shout. Didn't threaten. Didn't move. He simply stared down at Garrett with eyes that promised annihilation. And Seraphina realized with chilling clarity. This was only the beginning. The palace gates stood between Garrett and war. For 3 days, he demanded entry. For 3 days, Nikolai had denied him. But on the 4th morning, when the throne hall filled with petitioning wolves and council business, Garrett Ashford walked through the doors unannounced. 50 warriors flanked him, all wearing nightshade colors, all armed, all radiating barely controlled violence. The hall fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Wolves scrambled out of his path. Elders half rose from their seats, torn between protocol and survival instinct. Seraphina stood near the throne, where Nikolai had positioned her during morning petitions. Her blood went cold as Garrett's eyes locked onto her across the polished stone floor. He marched forward, boots echoing like war drums. His warriors fanned out behind him, hands resting on weapons. When he reached the center of the hall, Garrett's voice boomed. She is mine. By destiny, by moon, by right. The goddess herself chose us. You cannot keep what fate has bound. Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Some nodded. Others watched Nikolai warily. The Alpha King sat utterly still on his throne, silver hair falling around bare shoulders, crown glinting. His expression was unreadable, calm, cold, ancient. Garrett's confidence grew with the silence. I invoke mate right. She is marked for me. The bond cannot be severed by mortal law, not even yours. More murmurs. Louder now. Several elders exchanged glances. Then Nikolai rose. The movement was slow, controlled, predatory. He descended the dais steps with the casual grace of something that had never known fear. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop 10 degrees. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Soft. Terrifying. Touch her, and I erase your bloodline. The entire hall stopped breathing. No one moved. No one blinked. Even Garrett's warriors went statue still. Nikolai continued in that same deadly whisper. Not just you, Garrett. Your pack. Your territory. Your name. I will burn the Nightshade bloodline from history so thoroughly that wolves will forget you ever existed. Garrett's jaw clenched. His nostrils flared. But uncertainty flickered behind his eyes. Seraphina felt something crack open inside her, rage she'd been swallowing for weeks, grief she'd buried under fear. Her voice rang out clear and sharp. Tell them why you really want me back, Garrett. Tell them about the experiments. Gasps swept through the hall. Garrett's expression twisted. Careful, little wolf. Tell them about the rogue wolves you've been capturing. About the illegal enhancement rituals you've been performing in the caves beneath Nightshade territory. The hall erupted. Council members shot to their feet. Elders demanded order. Warriors shifted uneasily. Lies. Garrett snarled. My father discovered what you were doing, Seraphina continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. He was going to report you to the council. So you killed him. Snapped his neck in the woods and made it look like a rogue attack. Silence crashed through the room like a tidal wave. High Elder Morvain rose, his ancient face grave. These are serious accusations, child. Do you have proof? I saw it. Seraphina's hands trembled but she kept them at her sides. I followed my father that night. I watched Garrett murder him. Watched him wipe the blood from his claws like it meant nothing. She's distraught, Garrett said smoothly, but his mask was cracking. Grief has twisted her memories. The evidence is hidden beneath the floorboards in my father's study, Seraphina said. Documents. Testimonies from wolves he interviewed. Names of the rogues who disappeared. Everything he gathered before Garrett silenced him. Murmurs exploded into shouts. Elders called for investigation. Warriors looked to their king. Garrett's composure shattered. His wolf surged beneath his skin, eyes flashing amber, claws extending. He took a step toward Seraphina, voice dropping to a vicious snarl. You think you're safe here? You think he'll protect you forever? His smile was razor-sharp and poisonous. The king will tire of you. He always does. And when he casts you aside, when the novelty wears off and you're alone again, you'll come crawling back to me. Because that bond between us? It doesn't die just because you ran. It burns. It aches. And eventually, it breaks you. Seraphina opened her mouth to respond. But Nikolai moved. One moment he stood 5 paces away. The next, he was behind Seraphina, one possessive hand settling on her waist. The touch sent electricity through the bond between them. His voice carried to every corner of the hall. She is under my protection. My oath binds hers. My claim supersedes yours, and yours no longer exists. The declaration rang like iron. Garrett's face went white. Then red. You can't. I am the Alpha King, Nikolai said softly, dangerously. I can do anything I want. And what I want is for you to leave my territory before I forget mercy exists. For a long moment, Garrett simply stared. His wolf raged behind his eyes, murder written across his features. His warriors tensed, hands tightening on weapons. Then, slowly, Garrett smiled. It was the smile from Seraphina's nightmares. The smile he'd worn while killing her father. The smile that promised blood and patience and inevitable vengeance. This isn't over, he said quietly. He turned, warriors falling into formation around him. His boots echoed across stone as he walked toward the exit. But before he reached the doors, he looked back at Seraphina one final time. That smile widened. I'll see you soon, little wolf. When he realizes what you really are, he'll deliver you to me himself. Then he was gone. The hall remained frozen. Silent. Everyone watching Nikolai's hand still resting possessively on Seraphina's waist, watching the way she leaned back into his presence despite herself. And Seraphina realized with chilling certainty, Garrett wasn't retreating. He was planning. The nightmares started that night. Seraphina thrashed in silk sheets, trapped between sleep and waking. Stars exploded behind her eyelids, silver white and burning. Cosmic energy ripped through her veins like liquid fire. She saw galaxies collapsing, heard voices speaking in languages older than wolfkind, felt power clawing its way up from somewhere deep inside her soul. She woke gasping. Her chamber was dark except for dying embers in the fireplace. Sweat soaked her nightgown. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her face, trying to slow her racing heart. Then she felt it. A presence. Watching. Seraphina's head snapped toward the shadows near her door. Nikolai stood there, silent as death, silver hair catching what little light remained. He wore only dark trousers, his tattooed chest bare, crown absent. For once, he looked almost mortal. "How long have you been standing there?" Her voice came out shaky. "Long enough." He moved closer, stepped silent on stone. "You were calling out in a language that hasn't been spoken in 300 years. Seraphina's blood went cold. "I don't know any other languages." "Your power does." He sat on the edge of her bed, not aggressive, not threatening. Just present. Calm in a way that somehow made her breathing slow. "Tell me what you saw," he said quietly. "Stars. Burning. Energy tearing through me like..." The words cut off as silver-white light suddenly erupted from her skin. It burst outward in a wave, illuminating the entire chamber. Furniture rattled. Windows cracked. The bond between her and Nikolai flared so bright it was blinding. Seraphina screamed as power she didn't understand flooded through every nerve. Then Nikolai's hands were on her shoulders, grounding her, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Breathe. Control it. Don't fight it, guide it." The energy pulsed, wild and terrifying. But slowly, so slowly, it began to recede. The light dimmed. The trembling stopped. When Seraphina opened her eyes, Nikolai was staring at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Fascination. Hunger. Something almost like hope. "You're Starforged," he murmured. "You already told me that." "No." He shook his head. "I suspected. Now I know. Your bloodline isn't just rare, Seraphina. It's the rarest power in existence. A lineage capable of killing immortals," she whispered, remembering his words from days ago. "Yes. But also so much more." Nikolai's eyes gleamed gold in the darkness. "You can rip curses apart. Rewrite fate itself. Change the destiny of entire realms. Gods feared your ancestors. Kings tried to erase them. And everyone believed they'd succeeded. Until me. Until you." Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. "What happens now?" Seraphina asked. "Now, we train you. Before your power destroys you from the inside out." Training began at dawn. Nikolai took her to the highest tower, a chamber carved from black stone, open to the sky. Wind howled through empty windows. Storm clouds gathered overhead like witnesses. "Your power responds to emotion," Nikolai explained, circling her like a predator studying prey. "Fear. Rage. Grief. It feeds on intensity. So we start there." He moved without warning. One moment he stood 3 paces away. The next, his claws were at her throat, not cutting, but close enough to feel death's promise. Seraphina's power exploded. Silver light burst from her skin, throwing Nikolai back 10 feet. He landed in a crouch, grinning like a wolf who'd just found worthy prey. "Good. Again." They trained for hours. He pushed her, provoked her, forced her power to surface over and over until she learned to recognize its rhythm. Learned to call it. Control it. Between sessions, in quiet moments when exhaustion made her honest, Nikolai revealed fragments of his curse. 200 years, he said one evening, staring at storm clouds. 200 years without sleep. Without dreams. Without the mercy of unconsciousness. Every moment, I'm aware. Present. Trapped in endless waking. Why? Seraphina asked softly. A witch I wronged. She cursed me to immortality without rest. To rule forever but never find peace. To watch everyone I've ever cared about die while I remain. His jaw clenched. I've tried everything. Bargains with shamans. Rituals older than this palace. Nothing works. Until you. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open inside her. Their dynamic shifted after that. Still dominant. Still dangerous. But softer somehow. Real. But not everyone welcomed Seraphina's awakening power. Whispers spread through the palace like poison. Council members muttered about unstable magic. Wolves feared what they didn't understand. On the 7th night, Seraphina overheard elders arguing outside the war room. She's dangerous. That kind of power, it shouldn't exist. If she loses control, she could kill us all. Better to eliminate the threat before. The door slammed open. Nikolai stood in the doorway, eyes blazing gold. Suggest killing her again, he said softly, and I'll show you what real danger looks like. The elders fled. But Seraphina heard their fear. Felt it in every stare, every whisper, every wolf who moved out of her path like she carried plague. On the 10th day, a messenger arrived. Your Majesty, the Blood Moon Festival. It's in 3 days. The room went deathly silent. Seraphina looked at Nikolai. What's the Blood Moon Festival? His expression darkened. A night when ancient magic is strongest. When curses weaken. He met her eyes. When I'm most vulnerable. Understanding crashed through her. Garrett. Will likely attack. Yes. Outside, hidden in the shadow of the palace walls, a figure watched. Garrett Ashford smiled as red moonlight began to gather on the horizon. 3 days. That's all he needed. 3 days, and the king would be weak. The girl would be isolated. And destiny would correct itself, with blood. If you can't stand people like Garrett who think power means they can destroy anyone in their way, hit subscribe to Shadow Moon Stories and comment justice over power. Let's show that murderers and manipulators don't get to win, only cowards support wolves like him. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Red light flooded the palace courtyard where hundreds of wolves gathered for the festival. Torches burned. Music played. Ceremonial wine flowed freely. But beneath the celebration, tension crackled like lightning waiting to strike. Seraphina stood beside Nikolai on the upper balcony, watching wolves dance below. The king's presence felt different tonight, dimmer somehow, as if the crimson moonlight drained him. How much weaker does the curse make you? She asked quietly. Enough. His jaw tightened. My immortality holds, but my strength diminishes. For one night, I'm closer to mortal than I've been in 2 centuries. Then why hold the festival at all? Because tradition demands it. Because showing weakness would be worse than vulnerability. Because. The explosion cut him off. The palace gates erupted in flames and splintered wood. Wolves screamed. The music died. And through the burning wreckage stormed Garrett Ashford with 50 rogue wolves at his back, all battle-scarred, all feral, all radiating murderous intent. Chaos erupted. Warriors rushed to engage. Steel clashed against claws. Blood sprayed across ancient stone. Festival-goers fled, trampling each other in panic. Garrett's voice boomed across the courtyard. Nikolai Stormrain. Your protection ends tonight. Nikolai moved to the balcony edge, power radiating despite his weakened state. You dare attack during sacred festival? I dare everything. Garrett's smile was vicious. Especially when the mighty Alpha King is at his weakest. He raised one hand. In his palm sat a small vial filled with purple smoke that writhed like living shadow. Seraphina's blood went cold. What is that? Nikolai's expression turned to stone. Wolfsbane Hexmist. Designed to kill immortal wolves. Garrett hurled the vial. It shattered at the base of the balcony. Purple smoke exploded upward, tendrils seeking, hunting. Nikolai tried to move, but the Blood Moon's curse had already slowed him. The Hexmist found him. It wrapped around his body like serpents, sinking into his skin. Nikolai's eyes went wide. He staggered, crashing to one knee as purple veins spread across his chest, his neck, his face, glowing like poison light beneath skin. No. Seraphina lunged toward him, but guards held her back. Below, Garrett laughed. Watch your king die, little wolf. Watch the mighty fall. Nikolai collapsed fully, veins blazing purple-black, his breathing labored. The bond between him and Seraphina screamed with his agony. Garrett moved with predatory speed, scaling the balcony wall. His warriors flooded the palace, overwhelming the guards. Within seconds, he stood before Seraphina, violence written across every line of his body. He grabbed her by the throat. His claws pressed into her skin, not cutting, but promising. His breath was hot against her face, reeking of blood and triumph. "I told you," he hissed. "I told you he'd fail you. That your little sanctuary would crumble. Now the bond between us will reignite, and you'll come crawling back where you belong." Seraphina clawed at his hand, gasping for air. Behind them, Nikolai convulsed on the ground, poison eating him alive from the inside. Garrett's smile widened. "Say goodbye to your king." Something inside Seraphina snapped. Not broke, ignited. The mark on her neck erupted in silver-white fire. Power exploded from her core like a detonation, blasting Garrett backward 20 feet. He crashed into the stone wall with bone-shattering force. Seraphina's entire body blazed with starlight. Her eyes burned silver. Her hair lifted in an invisible wind. Energy crackled across her skin like captured lightning, and for the first time, she didn't fight it. She commanded it. Guards and rogues alike stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the light. Garrett snarled, pushing himself upright, but Seraphina wasn't looking at him anymore. She was running to Nikolai. She dropped to her knees beside the king, whose golden eyes had dimmed to almost nothing. Purple poison pulsed through every vein. His breathing came in ragged gasps. "Use me," Seraphina whispered, gripping his face with both hands. "Use whatever you need. But you do not die for me. You don't get to die. Seraphina." His voice was barely audible. "The power will kill you. I don't care." She pressed her forehead to his, and her star-forged energy poured into him like a flood breaking through a dam. Silver and gold collided. The explosion of light was blinding. Energy spiraled around them, silver starfire and golden storm magic coiling together, merging, fusing into something the realm had never seen. The poison burned away like paper and flame. The curse cracked with sounds like breaking glass. Their powers converged, intertwining so completely that Seraphina couldn't tell where hers ended and his began. The bond between them transformed. Not just blood oath anymore. Not just protection. This was union, ancient, cosmic, absolute. Nikolai's eyes snapped open. They blazed gold-white, brighter than the blood moon, brighter than stars. Power radiated from him in waves that made the palace foundations tremble. He rose, not weakened, not diminished. Transformed. The curse that had bound him for 2 centuries shattered like chains made of glass. Sleep, denied for so long, became possible again. But more than that, Seraphina's star-forged power now flowed through his veins, merged with his immortal essence. He was no longer just the Alpha King. He was something beyond. Garrett stared, mouth open, all his triumph turning to ash. "Impossible," he whispered. Nikolai turned his gold-white gaze on the rogue Alpha. And smiled. "If you believe wolves like Garrett who poison, manipulate, and destroy to get what they want deserve nothing but justice, hit subscribe to Shadow Moon Stories and comment "Power can't defeat destiny." Show that monsters don't win just because they fight dirty, only cowards stay silent when evil thinks it's won. The transformed king moved like death-given form. Nikolai crossed the balcony in 3 strides, power radiating from him in waves that made stone crack beneath his feet. His eyes blazed gold-white, no longer just wolf, no longer just cursed immortal. Something far more ancient. Far more terrifying. Garrett tried to run. He made it 2 steps before Nikolai's hand closed around his throat, lifting him off the ground with one arm. The rogue Alpha clawed at the iron grip, gasping, feet kicking uselessly in empty air. 2 centuries, Nikolai said quietly, his voice resonating with power that made windows shatter. 2 centuries I've endured that curse. And you thought Wolfsbane Hexmist would end me? Garrett's face turned purple. His wolf surged beneath his skin, trying to force a transformation that wouldn't come. Not against this. Not against a king who just merged with Starforged power. Nikolai's claws extended, pressing into flesh. Give me one reason why I shouldn't end you where you hang. Do it, Garrett choked out, defiant even now. Kill me. Make me a martyr. Watch my pack rise in vengeance. No. Seraphina's voice cut through the night like a blade. She stepped forward, silver light still dancing across her skin, her eyes meeting Nikolai's. The bond between them hummed with shared power, shared purpose. Don't kill him, she said softly. Shock rippled through the assembled wolves. Garrett's eyes widened in confusion. Nikolai tilted his head, studying her. He tried to murder you. Multiple times. I know. He killed your father. I know. Seraphina's voice remained steady. Which is exactly why killing him is mercy. Understanding flickered across Nikolai's face. Seraphina turned her gaze to Garrett, and her expression held no forgiveness. No weakness. Only cold, calculated justice. Death would be quick. Painless compared to what he deserves. But exile? Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Exile means he lives with what he's done. Stripped of everything he murdered for. Watching from the shadows as his territory, his pack, his legacy, all of it crumbles to dust. That's punishment. That's justice. Garrett thrashed in Nikolai's grip. You can't. I can do anything I want, Nikolai said, echoing his words from days before. I am the Alpha King. He released Garrett, letting him crash to the stone. The rogue Alpha gasped for air, blood trickling from where claws had punctured skin. Nikolai's voice carried across the entire courtyard, amplified by power that made every wolf present feel it in their bones. Garrett Ashford, stripped of rank, bloodline, and territory. Your pack is dissolved. Your lands are forfeit. You are exiled at dawn. Cross into any territory under my protection, and you die. Slowly. The declaration hung in the air like falling snow, cold, inevitable, absolute. Garrett pushed himself upright, hatred burning in his eyes. This isn't over. It is. Seraphina stepped beside Nikolai, silver and gold light intertwining around them. You lost the moment you thought murder could solve your problems. You lost when you underestimated a woman's rage. And you lost when you forgot that wolves like you always fall. Guards moved forward, hauling Garrett to his feet. His 50 rogues had already been subdued or fled. His coup had failed spectacularly. As they dragged him toward the shattered gates, Garrett looked back one final time. But the smile was gone. The confidence was gone. All that remained was a broken wolf facing the consequences of his choices. The courtyard remained frozen in silence. Hundreds of wolves, warriors, council members, festival attendees, all watched as their king stood transformed beside the woman who changed everything. Power radiated from them both, merged and undeniable. Nikolai turned to Seraphina. In front of the entire pack, he cupped her jaw with surprising gentleness. His voice dropped to that quiet, intimate tone that somehow carried to every corner of the courtyard. You chose my lap over your mate. The world held its breath. Now the world will learn what that means. The bond between them flared bright enough to cast shadows across the blood moon itself. Not a mate bond, something older. Something that transcended destiny's dictates. The entire pack froze. Because there is no vow more powerful, no claim more absolute, than a promise whispered by the Alpha King to the woman who'd saved him. 3 days later, reports came from the borders. Neighboring territories had felt the surge of power during the blood moon. Questions arose. Alliances shifted. Some packs sent envoys seeking favor. Others sent spies seeking weakness. War was coming. That much was certain. But in the highest tower of the northern palace, Seraphina stood beside Nikolai as dawn broke across mountains that had witnessed 2 centuries of his curse. What happens now? She asked. Nikolai's hand found hers, their power still humming in harmony. Now, we face whatever comes. Together. Silver and gold light danced between their intertwined fingers. The curse that had bound him was broken. The power that had slept in her was awakened. Their destinies, written separately by moon and star, had merged into something new. Something the realm had never seen. Seraphina had walked into the great hall expecting to escape one fate. Instead, she'd found another, not bound by destiny's chains, but forged by choice, power, and the defiance of a woman who refused to be a victim. The Alpha King was no longer mortal alone. And the star-forged wolf who'd chosen his lap over her mate? She'd just rewritten the future of every wolf in the realm. Beyond the mountains, in territories where old power stirred and ancient enemies woke, the story of what happened during the Blood Moon Festival spread like wildfire. They spoke of a woman who sat on the Alpha King's lap. They spoke of the quiet words that froze an entire pack. And they spoke of the moment destiny learned that some wolves don't bow to fate. They shatter it. If you believe people who commit murder, manipulation, and violence to get power deserve exile, not rewards, hit subscribe to Shadow Moon Stories and comment "Justice always wins." Let's prove that monsters like Garrett don't get second chances just because they're powerful. Only enablers and cowards think abusers deserve mercy over consequences.
Thank you so much for staying with me through Seraphina's journey. Honestly, it means the world to me that you watched until the very end. You know what? I poured my heart into this story because I believe in women who refuse to be victims. Women who choose their own path even when the world tells them they can't. And if Seraphina's courage touched your heart the way it touched mine while writing it, then I have another story waiting for you that's even more powerful. The next one? Oh, sweetheart. It's going to break you and heal you all at once. More forbidden love, more impossible choices, more moments that'll make your heart race. I promise you won't regret it. Click on the image showing on your screen right now, and let's continue this journey together. Because stories like these, they're meant to be shared with souls who understand that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. And before you go, I realized something. We've spent all this time together, but I don't even know where you're watching from. Are you curled up at home? On a break at work? Listening while you wind down for the night? Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are right now. Register your presence. Lovely. Let me know you were here. Because knowing there's someone out there who felt what I felt while creating this, that makes every word worth it. I'll see you in the next story. Don't keep me waiting.